Welcome back to PsychVerse, your guide to the science of the mind and behavior. In our last episode, we explored what psychology is all about. Today, we're taking a journey through time to discover how psychology began and how different schools of thought shaped the way we understand behavior and the human mind. Long before psychology became a science, philosophers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle were asking deep questions about the mind, memory, and human nature. But psychology officially began in 1879 when Wilhelm Wundt opened the first experimental psychology lab in Germany. This marked the birth of psychology as a scientific discipline. Wundt and his student Edward Titchener developed a theory called structuralism. They believed that consciousness could be broken down into basic parts, like sensations, thoughts, and feelings. They used a method called introspection, where people described their mental experiences in detail. But introspection was difficult to measure, and over time, structuralism faded out. Meanwhile, in the United States, William James was asking a different question. Not what is consciousness made of, but what does it do? His theory, functionalism, focused on how mental processes help us adapt and survive. It was inspired by Charles Darwin's theory of evolution and emphasized the purpose of thought and behavior. Next came one of the most famous names in psychology, Sigmund Freud. Freud developed psychoanalysis, a theory based on the idea that much of human behavior is driven by unconscious motives and childhood experiences. He introduced ideas like the id, ego, and superego, defense mechanisms, and the importance of dreams. Though many of his ideas are debated today, his influence on psychology and pop culture remains huge. In the early 20th century, psychology took a more scientific turn with behaviorism. Psychologists like John B. Watson and B. F. Skinner argued that we should only study observable behavior, not thoughts or emotions. They believed behavior is learned through interactions with the environment, through conditioning and reinforcement. This approach made psychology more measurable and practical. In the 1950s, some psychologists felt that behaviorism and psychoanalysis were too focused on problems and limitations. They introduced a more positive view, humanistic psychology. Thinkers like Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow emphasized free will, self-growth, and the drive to become the best version of ourselves. Maslow's hierarchy of needs became a well-known model, showing how people move from basic survival to self-fulfillment. By the 1960s, psychology shifted again. This time, the focus returned to the mind itself. The cognitive revolution explored how we think, remember, solve problems, and make decisions. This gave rise to cognitive psychology, which laid the foundation for modern neuroscience, artificial intelligence, and even therapy. Today, psychology is more diverse than ever. It blends many perspectives: biological, looking at the brain and body; cognitive, how we process information; behavioral, how we learn psychodynamic, inner conflicts, and the unconscious; humanistic, personal growth; socio-cultural, how society shapes us; and evolutionary psychology, looking at behavior through the lens of survival and adaptation. Modern psychologists often use a biopsychosocial approach, combining biology, psychology, and environment to understand people more completely. So, as you can see, psychology has come a long way, from philosophical questions to scientific discovery. Each school of thought added something valuable, and today they help us understand the full complexity of human behavior. In our next episode, we'll explore the brain and behavior, how your biology influences the way you think and feel. Thanks for watching PsychVerse. If you're enjoying this series, don't forget to like, subscribe,